Subject: my ex-wife gave me the most insane ultimatum. Hi, true story. I figured I'd send mine in. Because if there's anyone out there who needs a sign to leave when things get insane, maybe my story will give them that clarity. This isn't an easy email to write, because if you had asked me 5 years ago if I thought I'd ever be divorced, I would have told you no way. I thought marriage was forever. I didn't think I'd be writing into a YouTuber to explain how my wife gave me the ultimatum of letting her sleep with her ex-boyfriend as his so-called dying wish, or else she'd put me in the doghouse. But that's exactly what happened, and that was the beginning of the end for us. Let me back up though, because to understand why I left, you need to know how we got here. From the start of meeting my ex, she made it clear she wasn't interested in having kids. She used to joke that kids ruined women's bodies, that pregnancy was a parasite, and that she was never going to let herself go just to raise children. I thought she was just being dramatic, but after a few months, I realized she was serious. Honestly, I didn't think much of it because I wasn't dead set on being a dad. I thought, okay, if it's just us, that's fine. We dated for about 2 years before we got married. Those 2 years weren't perfect. We had our share of fights, mostly about her spending habits and how she always seemed to put herself first. But she had this way of making me feel like those arguments were just normal couple things. I told myself every relationship has ups and downs. We got married in 2019. The rocky start. Marriage didn't magically make things better. If anything, the first 2 years were rougher than our dating years. We fought constantly about the dumbest things: what to eat, where to go on vacation, who was supposed to clean what. I thought we just needed time to adjust to living together as husband and wife. Then something happened that changed everything, or at least I thought it did. In 2020, she got pregnant by accident. At first, she was devastated. She cried for days, saying this was her worst nightmare. I tried to comfort her, told her maybe this was a blessing in disguise, and I even started imagining what it would be like to be a dad. But about 10 weeks in, she had a miscarriage. I was crushed, but she seemed relieved. My mother, though, she had a very different reaction. She pulled me aside one day and told me she believed my wife had purposely caused the miscarriage. She said she noticed how careless my wife was being, drinking wine and acting like she wasn't pregnant at all. I didn't want to believe it. I thought my mom was just being harsh, but in the back of my mind, her words stayed with me. Strangely enough, after the miscarriage, our marriage seemed to improve. We weren't fighting as much. We were going out more, and she even started talking about how maybe not having kids was the best decision for us. For the first time since getting married, I felt like we were finally on the same page. The ultimatum. That peace didn't last. In late 2022, she sat me down one night and told me her ex-boyfriend from college had been diagnosed with cancer. I didn't think much of it. I figured she was just sharing news about someone from her past. But then she dropped the bombshell. She said he had one dying wish, and that was to sleep with her one last time. I laughed at first because I thought she was joking, but she was dead serious. She said, "If you really love me, you'll let me do this for him. He's dying, Lance." I told her she was insane. I told her no real wife asks her husband to let her sleep with another man, dying wish or not. She said if I didn't allow it, she'd put me in the doghouse. That's when I realized I was dealing with someone who had completely lost touch with reality. I told her fine, if that's what she wanted, she could go ahead and sleep with as many ex-boyfriends as she wanted because she was about to be single. My brother's advice. Before I pulled the trigger on divorce, I talked to my brother. He said, "Man, if she's bold enough to ask that, she's probably already cheating." He suggested I snoop around just to see if I could find proof. I didn't want to be that guy who goes through his wife's phone. But my gut told me to listen to him. Sure enough, I found messages between her and this same ex. Not only was she already in contact with him, but she was sending him things no married woman should be sending another man. They had been talking for months, and it was obvious she was planning to cheat regardless of whether I gave her permission or not. That was the nail in the coffin. Finding a lawyer. I scheduled a meeting with a divorce lawyer the very next week. My wife had no clue. I didn't even drop hints. I just acted normal until the day she got served at work. The phone call I got from her that day was explosive. She screamed, cried, and begged me to reconsider. She said we could go to marriage counseling, that we could fix this, but I knew better. Once trust is gone, there's no fixing it. The divorce hearing. During the divorce process, she tried to paint herself as the victim. At our hearing, she acted like she had been the most loving, dedicated wife and that I just didn't appreciate her. She cried in front of the judge, saying she never cheated and that I had abandoned her. But I had the receipts. I had the text messages. When my lawyer presented them, she went silent. In the end, the judge saw through her act. She didn't get what she wanted out of the divorce, and that was another blow to her ego. Where I stand now. Looking back, I can't believe I even considered staying with someone who thought it was okay to give me an ultimatum like that. I'm glad I trusted my gut and listened to my brother. If I hadn't snooped, I might have gone into counseling with her, wasting months or years of my life with someone who was never going to respect me. My mother told me she was proud of me for walking away. She said she knew from the start that woman wasn't right for me. I guess mothers really do know best. When she got served at work, she called me in the middle of the day, screaming. At first, it was all anger. How dare you embarrass me like this? Do you know how humiliating it is to be served at work? Then it turned into begging. We can fix this, Lance. We can go to counseling. Don't throw everything away over one mistake. But I wasn't buying it. This wasn't one mistake. This was a pattern of selfishness, disrespect, and betrayal. I told her as calmly as I could, "You already made your choice. I'm just making it official." That night, she showed up at the house crying, pounding on the door, and saying we needed to talk. I didn't let her in. Instead, I told her we could discuss things through our lawyers. She sat in her car outside the house for over an hour before finally driving away. That was when it hit me. This wasn't going to be simple. Her counseling phase. For about 2 weeks after she was served, she tried to push counseling hard. She sent me long texts every morning about how marriage is about forgiveness, about how people make mistakes and grow from them. She even mailed me a handwritten letter where she said she'd realized I was the love of her life and she couldn't imagine living without me. It might have worked if I didn't already know she was lying through her teeth. By that point, I'd seen the messages between her and her ex. She wasn't sorry about betraying me. She was sorry about getting caught. My lawyer told me not to respond to most of her messages and to keep everything about the divorce process professional. That was good advice because every time I slipped and replied, she tried to twist it into some kind of emotional leverage. For example, I once replied with, "We don't need counseling. The marriage is over." She shot back, "See, you're not even willing to fight for me. That proves you didn't love me in the first place." It was like talking in circles. The divorce proceedings begin. When we got into the actual divorce proceedings, she went into full performance mode. At the first hearing, she came dressed like she was going to Sunday service. White blouse, modest skirt, hair done perfectly. She made sure to cry just enough to look sympathetic, but not enough to smear her makeup. She told the judge she had been a loyal, loving wife who only wanted to make me happy, but that I was cold and unappreciative. She said she didn't understand why I was leaving her, that she had tried everything to save the marriage, and that she believed in "till death do us part." I almost laughed out loud in the courtroom. This was the same woman who told me she'd put me in the doghouse if I didn't let her sleep with her ex as his dying wish. But in front of the judge, She acted like she was the poster child for marriage. That's when my lawyer presented the evidence. Screenshots of her text messages with her ex, the flirtatious messages, the late night "I miss you" texts, and the plans to meet up. She went dead silent. The judge asked her if the messages were real. She admitted they were, but tried to spin it by saying she was just comforting an old friend who was going through a hard time. The judge wasn't buying it. Neither was I. Property and finances. We didn't have kids, which made things a little simpler, but we did have shared property and finances. The house was the biggest thing. I had bought the house before we got married, but her name had been added to the mortgage when we tied the knot. She tried to argue that she deserved half, even though she hadn't contributed much toward payments. My lawyer fought hard for me, pointing out that I had put down the down payment years before we met and that most of the equity was built up before she came into the picture. In the end, the judge sided with me. I got to keep the house, and she walked away with a smaller settlement than she expected, and she was furious. After the ruling, she whispered under her breath, "You'll regret this." Her victim campaign. After the first hearing didn't go her way, she switched tactics. She started telling everyone she knew that I had blindsided her, that I never loved her, and that I was cold-hearted for leaving her when she needed me most. Mutual friends reached out to me, confused, asking what happened. At first, I tried to explain the truth, but eventually I stopped. People will believe what they want to believe. I figured, let her talk. The people who mattered, my family, my close friends, already knew the truth. Still, it was hard to watch her rewrite the story to make herself the hero. She even posted vague Facebook statuses like, "Funny how some men can't handle a strong woman who just wants to help people." I knew exactly what she was doing. Finalizing the divorce. When the divorce was finally finalized, she lost it. She broke down crying in the courtroom, saying she couldn't believe the judge was letting our marriage die. She begged me one last time outside the courtroom to reconsider. She said, "Please, Lance, don't do this. I'll change. I promise I'll be the wife you want me to be." But I had heard it all before. I told her, "You already had your chance. I'm done." Walking out of that courthouse felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I felt free. Her reaction afterward. After the divorce, she went through a few phases. Anger. She sent me furious texts about how I ruined her life, how she wasted years on me, and how no one would ever love me like she did. Sadness. A couple of weeks later, she sent me drunk messages late at night saying she missed me, that she couldn't sleep without me, that she'd do anything to get me back. Denial. Then she started acting like we could still be friends. She'd text me about random things like, "Hey, do you still have that blender we bought?" Or, "Do you want to come to mutual friends' party?" I ignored most of it. My lawyer had told me it was best to go no contact, and that's what I've tried to do. Looking back, now that some time has passed, I realized just how toxic that marriage was. It wasn't just about the cheating or the ultimatum. It was about her mindset. She always put herself first, and she had no respect for me as her husband. My mom told me something that stuck with me. "Lance, you didn't lose a wife, you dodged a bullet." And she's right. If I had stayed, who knows what kind of damage she would have done to me emotionally, mentally, or even financially. The divorce process wasn't easy. It was draining, expensive, and stressful, but it was worth it because now I have peace. That's how the divorce went and how she reacted. She played the victim, tried to manipulate the system, and when it didn't work, she tried to manipulate me. But at the end of the day, the truth came out. When my divorce was finalized, I thought I'd feel nothing but relief, and in some ways, I did. Walking out of that courthouse felt like I could breathe again for the first time in years. But then reality hit me. I had to rebuild my life. I came home to an empty house that night. No one asking me what's for dinner. No one blasting music while getting ready for bed. No one complaining about the thermostat being too cold. The silence was strange at first, but slowly I started to love it. That silence became peace. Still, in those early weeks, people asked me, "Do you think you'll ever get married again?" My answer then was, maybe one day. But the more I reflected on what marriage really is today, legally, financially, and emotionally, the more I realized I never want to sign those papers again. Why I don't want marriage again. The legal trap. Divorce opened my eyes to how dangerous marriage can be for men. Even without kids, even with me being careful, I still had to fight tooth and nail just to keep the house I had bought before I even met her. The system isn't built fairly. It's not about love when you're standing in front of a judge. It's about money, property, and leverage. I don't ever want to put myself in a position where someone else has that much control over my future again. The disrespect. Once I saw how little respect my wife had for me, I couldn't unsee it. Marriage doesn't magically make a woman more loyal or appreciative. If anything, it gave her a sense of entitlement. She thought she could do whatever she wanted and I'd stick around because we were legally bound. I'm never handing anyone that kind of blind loyalty again. The illusion of forever. Marriage sells this fairy tale of forever. But forever doesn't mean anything if both people aren't committed to the same values. I believed in loyalty. She believed in options. That's a recipe for disaster. I'd rather be in a relationship where we choose each other every day, not where a piece of paper pretends to guarantee commitment. My mom's perspective. My mom has been married to my dad for over 40 years, and she still told me, "Lance, times have changed. Marriage doesn't mean the same thing it used to." She said she was proud of me for walking away, and she also told me not to feel pressured to remarry. She reminded me of something important. You can have companionship without marriage. You can love without marriage. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. That advice stuck with me. Dating after divorce. I know some people might be wondering, have I dated since the divorce? The answer is yes, a little, but I go into it with clear boundaries. A few months after everything ended, I started talking to a woman I met at the gym. She was nice, down to earth, and we went on a few dates. But early on, she started making little comments like, "So do you see yourself marrying again someday?" That was a red flag for me. I shut it down immediately. I told her, "No, I'll never marry again." She seemed disappointed, and eventually things fizzled out, and that's fine with me. I'd rather be upfront than lead someone on. I've had a couple of other casual dating experiences since then. Nothing serious. What I realized is that I enjoy companionship, intimacy, and connection, but I don't need a marriage certificate to validate any of that. Friends' reactions. Some of my friends think I'm being extreme. They say, "You can't let one bad marriage turn you off forever." But what they don't understand is it's not just about my ex. It's about the institution of marriage itself and what it's become. I've seen too many men get destroyed in divorce court. I've seen too many women flip the script and act like victims to gain sympathy. My brother, who's happily married, told me he respects my choice. He said, "The marriage works for me, but it's not for everyone. Do what gives you peace." That's exactly what I'm doing. What peace looks like. Peace for me now is coming home to my own space where everything is exactly how I left it, working on my hobbies without anyone criticizing me, spending time with friends and family without worrying about permission, traveling when I want, how I want, saving and investing my money without someone draining the account behind my back. It's the little things that feel the most freeing. If I look at marriage objectively, what do I gain that I can't get outside of marriage? Companionship? I can have that without marriage. Intimacy? Same thing. Partnership? You don't need the government involved for that. Now, what do I risk? My assets, my peace, my freedom, my time. That's too high a price for something that, at the end of the day, is just a social contract that doesn't guarantee love or loyalty. Here are a few lessons I've taken away from all this. Red flags ignored early will cost you later. I ignored my ex's selfishness and anti-kid mindset because I thought I could handle it. I couldn't. Marriage doesn't protect love, it tests it. Once she felt secure, that's when the disrespect came out. Freedom is priceless. I'd rather be single and free than married and miserable. So to answer the question once and for all, no, I will never get married again. I don't care if I meet the most amazing woman on the planet. I'll enjoy her company, I'll love her if I feel it, but I will not sign another legal contract that ties me to someone else's choices. Marriage today is a gamble where men risk everything and often gain very little. I learned that the hard way, but I'm grateful I learned it before kids or before losing everything I worked for. In my next email, I'll talk more about how I've been rebuilding my life post-divorce, financially, emotionally, and spiritually, because walking away wasn't the end of my story, it was just the beginning. Thanks again for giving me the space to share this. Sincerely, Lance.